morning, demo fans. So today I've got something completely different for you. What with the current lockdown and everything, I thought it would be useful to show everybody how I go about recording videos, how I record the screen, how I just generally set these things up to produce the videos for you guys, in case anybody out there wants to create their own content and start doing demos or sharing information with other people. So first things first is me. Always check my hair before I come on. Well, I do now. If you look at my older videos, that was something that I learnt. I also make sure that I put something on that is kind of appropriate, so I bought a bunch of nerdy shirts. This one, IR Programmer, I make computer beep boop beep beep boop. This is just a bit of fun. Alternatively, you could wear a shirt or something like that. Just make sure you're presentable, look in a mirror before starting to record, really. And then there's the room around me, so you can see at the moment on the whiteboard I've got a bunch of writing. If that's relevant, fine, leave it up. If it's not relevant, then wipe it off, clean it up, draw something fun, whatever you want to do. I've also got a bunch of kind of junk around, so before I start recording ever, I will try to get rid of the junk in the room. But don't get rid of too much junk. If you've got a completely plain background, then that probably won't work either. So, for instance, this is something that I got many years ago from Microsoft when I was testing 2003 server. At the time that was called .NET Server, hence the basketball.net. I've got my Rubik's Cube 4x4 and a bunch of other junk around that are just interesting things in the background. If you have nothing in the background, then everything looks a little bit boring. So with that, I'm going to probably change cameras and start showing you kind of the setup, and then we'll move on to how to do screen recording, how to do editing, that kind of stuff. Hope you enjoy the demo, and please whack that like button if you enjoy it. Thanks. So, now we're going into the how we would actually go about recording a video section. So I do these normally for the intro, for the outro, and any time I need to just talk on screen. So here I've got the GoPro that I'm using to show you what's happening outside of the main camera that's over there. And you can see that I've connected the big camera with a HDMI cable that is connected back to the main screen here. This is so that I can put myself in frame easily. I don't have to bring the screen of the SLR camera around to show myself. I've also then got this big light box over in the background. You can then see all the junk in my cupboards. So that is to shine a bunch of light on my face. It's also, we can see over here that we've got the outdoors is shining light in the other way, so that is to balance out the light from the outside, so I get a decent exposure on my face. Sometimes you can see some background out there. Sometimes I'll close the blinds a little bit just to improve that light balance. So you can also see on here I'm wearing my lav mic that I was just recording another piece directly into the computer. But up here I have then got the Rode microphone up on top of the SLR camera. That's then set up. You can see on the screen I've got the left right of the microphone, and if I make lots of noise over near the microphone you can see it peaking, and you probably just heard that on the video as well, really loudly. So that all needs to be set up before you start filming, just to make sure that things are exactly as you want them. I've locked down the light balance so that doesn't change ever while I'm filming. Important thing always to look in the lens of the camera. I'm struggling with that right now because I've got this camera and I've got the screen over there. So onto the desktop recording. As you can see, I'm using a program called OBS Studio, and this is just used to record the screen. It can also be used to stream that screen, and you can use it for a bunch of other things. So you can have different scenes If you're doing a webcast, you could have your screen, you could have a camera on yourself and switch between them, that kind of stuff. I use very basic functionality here. It's because it's free, it's incredibly good quality. So when we start recording, first things first is to turn off the background. You may enjoy your background, but your audience may not. So come into personalize, and I'm going to change that to solid color and just have black because it's easy, it's good on the recording. So you can then see I've got a bunch of files on my desktop. Nobody needs to see the files that you've got on your desktop, and especially if they're work related, there could be something confidential. So right click the desktop, go to view and show desktop icons, and they are gone. So needless to say, don't have Outlook open, don't have Teams open. You can then come down here and actually exit Teams, because Teams will still pop up if you have it open. So the next thing to do is I'm running this incredible 4K display here, so I need to. You probably noticed down here the OBS window is only a quarter in the display. So I need to go to display settings and select my large monitor, and then I'm going to change from my 4K display down to 1080p. Keep the changes, and now it's much more legible on the screen. What you might also want to do is change the scale and layout just to make sure it looks good on video. This is looking kind of fine, so we can work with that. And you can now see the OBS window is right in the middle of everything. So we are capturing the whole display. The next thing to understand is I use a couple of different web browsers. I tend to use one that I don't use normally, so it doesn't have my links in there, it doesn't have work links, any of those kinds of things. So we can then start doing things like this and kind of showing a web page. So we're coming into the demo index here, and right down here I've got the how I demo. So click on that and we can then kind of show the audience what's happening here. The important thing to remember is, as you saw just then as I was typing, my speech started stuttering. I wasn't really sure what to say as I was trying to type and remember and do things. So for this reason, I tend to split out the audio recording from the actual doing. So when I'm doing technical demos, I will record the screen and then I will edit that. And then later on I'll go back in and dub the audio over the top of it, because then I'm free to talk as I watch the video. I can explain what's going on the screen. The other really important one is, if you look back at the very, very beginning of my demos, I did, I think the Google BigQuery one was like an hour long, and it was an hour long just because I hadn't cut out the bits where we were waiting for stuff to happen on the screen. So if you record the screen first, you can then go back in anytime the web page or the product is taking a little while to load. When I'm deploying things on Azure that take maybe 5 minutes to deploy, I can just go back in and cut those pieces out of the scene, and you get a nice clean demo that's nice and short. People can concentrate all the way through. Obviously, somebody watching YouTube can pause and resume at will, so if they need to wait while they're deploying, then they're going to pause the video. You don't need to have those pauses in there. It's unlikely they're going to follow in real time. And I feel like most of the time when people are using these, they're actually watching the video, then going and following the instructions separately, rather than trying to follow along with the video as it's happening. And I can only assume a lot of you guys watch my videos and probably never implement these demos. Much as I would encourage you to do that, some people just don't want to get involved in that way. It's sometimes enough just to see that something works, how something works, and kind of move on with that extra knowledge. So that's how I record my scenes. The other thing to note is when I come in here and I hit start recording, you flick over to, so let's just get the portal up a minute. So you're going to line up the portal, make sure it's loaded. This takes a little while, so you don't want to show that on the video. Then I'll come into OBS Studio, hit start recording. Then I flick over to the thing that I'm going to record. move the mouse somewhere, and then pause for maybe 3 seconds. This gives you a nice way of editing the start point of the video, gives you a bit of time so that the video starts and then you start speaking, that kind of thing. And then when you move the mouse, don't move the mouse as if you're actually working. So when I'm working, I work like this, and the mouse is flying all over the place and people can't follow it. So when you're actually recording a video, move the mouse purposefully and slowly. Wait until something's loaded and then move. So if I'm going to deploy a storage account, I'll do the typing, then I move the mouse, hit the button, then I move the mouse, hit the button. And anytime anything is loading, do not move the mouse, because then you can cut pieces of time out if the mouse is not moving. Whereas if while that was loading, I'd moved the mouse to over here, the viewer would see the mouse would suddenly jump from one side of the screen to the other. Similarly, when you're hitting things like this, wait for it to load, move the mouse to the field, then start typing. It just makes sure that the viewer's eye is drawn to the box where you're about to start typing and gives them a chance to actually see what's going on. When you're finished, so I'm going to hit OK here, and then I'll type something else down here. Then we always go to the cheapest option just to make sure that people aren't accidentally spending money. Go through here, wait for a second, and then we'll pretend that this is done. I will then wait another 3 to 5 seconds after it's finished, pause, 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 and then I'll go to OBS Studio, and then I'll click stop recording. And the reason for that pause again is so that we can edit. It's very jarring if something just suddenly stops, so to have a couple of seconds resting with the mouse in place just gives you that option when you are editing later. So that's pretty much everything involved in recording the screen on the computer, and we'll move on now to how I then overdub this with a microphone. Once you've got everything edited, it's time to record the audio tracks. So what I normally do is I'll do a render of the video just so that my computer is not struggling at the same time as I'm trying to record the audio. I've had issues in the past where the video plays much quicker because the computer is struggling, and then the audio track isn't actually as long as the video, which makes it harder to then edit back in. So I'll render the video, and here I'm just using one of the videos that I recorded earlier for the on-screen recording. So I'm going to play that back on the computer. Then I'm using Audacity, which is another great piece of free software, and I'm going to set this up using a microphone. I'm going to choose the webcam that I've got on my computer, just purely so it's not using the audio that I'm using to actually record the video that I'm recording to show you this. So I can click start to monitor to make sure that I've got the levels right. So if I talk straight into the microphone up there or clap in front of it, you can see that peaking. And we want it so the really loud noises would peak up somewhere near 0, ideally just below, but normal talking is somewhere around the 12 kind of a range. So then when we're ready, I'm going to hit record, then I'm going to hit play, and then I'm going to describe to you what I'm seeing on the video. So hit record, you can then start seeing the waveforms recording on the screen. Come over here, hit play, and we can see that I'm just describing how to turn off the background. And then the next thing we're going to do is talk about the icons on the background. Right click on the desktop, and we're going to go to the view menu, and then we're going to go to show desktop icons, and those icons are going to disappear. And that is, when we're finished, we'll then come over and hit the stop button, and obviously we'll stop the video and close that. And that's pretty much just how I go about recording the audio that goes on the top of the bits that are on screen, or if I need to overdub some other video that I've done. Sometimes I record B-roll, which is just other bits of video, and sometimes I just want some audio on the top of that. So it's pretty straightforward. I can then within here go to File, Export, and just export as WAV. I'm recording at a very high recording rate. There's no real need for that. It's just a belt and braces thing. That file sizes aren't big enough these days to worry about these sorts of things. Choose somewhere to save it, and then Normally I would save that, import that back into Resolve, and then I would edit that into a video and then re-render with that new audio on the top. So when I'm recording the audio track alongside the on-screen parts, I'm going to connect a Lavalier microphone to the PC. Sometimes I'll actually connect the big microphone to the PC as well, which sits normally on top of the camera. I can then mount that onto a GorillaPod type of a tripod. That will then sit on my desk. While I'm doing that, I actually put the video up on the screen that I've already recorded, just so that I can watch it through in real time. I can talk over the top of it, and things then make sense for the viewer, because what I'm saying is matching up with the video, but without me actually having to struggle and try to speak over the top of the video while I'm recording it. I did try that a few times. It's very hard. If you make a mistake halfway through, then basically you've got to start all over again, whereas doing it this way I can cut into scenes and I can put them all back together into a cohesive story. Even if I've broken something halfway through, I can just record that part of the scene again, and then I can do a single or multiple takes of audio over the top of that. So next I'm going to show you how I go about editing the videos on the computer. So finally, we're going to edit the whole video in DaVinci Resolve. This again is a piece of free software. You can buy a copy of it, which will then use graphics cards and things to speed it up. To be honest, for the amount I do, I'm quite happy to set the render going and then just walk away and leave it for an hour while my laptop gets really hot. But if I used it much more, I probably would invest. It's only a couple of $100 to get the full version of this. It also comes free with the Blackmagic cameras, but those are well in excess of anything that I'm ever going to need. So first things first, I'm going to import all of my assets. And here you can see I've got the audio that I recorded in Audacity. I've got a bunch of videos. I've got a title card that I made. I made that, all of my title cards were in DaVinci Resolve using the Fusion 3D. That took a while. I just followed a YouTube example. And I've got my watermark for the videos, just to remind people what the channel is. In case anyone's wondering, I purposefully made the logo look like that. I thought it would be funny to have something a bit kitsch, so that is not an accident. That's not my level of artistic power. So in order to start editing this, I'm going to drag something into the right hand pane up here. I can then use this find control to find the beginning of when I'm talking, so you then have to watch yourself get comfortable, do a bit of a smile, maybe do some blinking, cough, whatever you need to do before you start talking. And then that's when I'm going to start talking, so bring it back just slightly, put an in marker. I'm going to come just straight to the end. Normally I would watch it all the way through. You can see here I'm reaching for the camera button, so I'll go back a bit and just put an end marker, and then we just drag this down here to create a timeline, zoom out of that timeline, put my watermark on, and sometimes I have to zoom in to get there we go. And I'm going to extend that out. Then I'm going to drag my title card on. So then find the, what was next? So I'm just going to drag this straight on. I will edit it properly later, obviously, but you can see here I've got audio here because obviously I was explaining it at the time, but normally I would unlink the clips and then I would cut this audio, and then I would find the audio that I recorded separately and put it in underneath, which would be the actual narrative of the demo. And basically you then go through and cut these things up. So if I come through here and I can move to this part of the video, and we can see there that we are looking at OBS. I can move forwards. let's say I wanted to cut it at this point, click on it, Control B puts a cut mark. I can then delete this second part. If I've got a piece where something's taking too long, I can cut like this, and then I've got a choice. I can either right click and go to change clip speed, and I can drag this up to 300, or I can, oops, change it to 300, and then I can do ripple sequence, change, and you can see that shrinks right down, and that will then run at much faster speed. So rather than cutting something completely out, I can just make it shorter in the timeline. But I could also just click on it and hit delete, and it will then delete and move everything up a little bit. So that's how we edit the video together. At the end, I will then go to the deliver button, and I've got some settings over here under custom, but basically I'm exporting as a MP4 in H.264, and I just record the audio as standard AAC, add to render queue, and then we'll give it a name, so how to demo.mp4, hit save, and then it adds to the render queue. We hit start render, and then it will go through and render. This part of the editing process takes a little getting used to, but it's pretty straightforward to do. There's a bunch of YouTube videos out there on how to do it. So hopefully you guys are going to start generating some demos that I can watch. Please pop something in the comment section below so that I'm aware of any videos that you've created off the back of this, and to share them with my audience. I'm sure that they'd be very interested in anything you create. So thanks for that, and please hit subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.